Hi, this is Snow Queen. You're watching Dante Boxing Nation. You can follow me on my Instagram at SnowQueenLA. Hey.
These are our people. These are our countrymen.
Dante's Boxing Nation, what's going on, guys? So a couple days ago, Errol Spence, he did a real good interview, or at least I should say Brian Custer had a real good interview with Errol Spence. And Errol Spence, he touched on a lot of topics, including the double standards that Errol Spence says he doesn't like in the sport of boxing, the racial double standards. He said he didn't like the fact that this is the only country where fans will root against their own country just to cheer on the foreign country, the visitors team, if you will. And he used Tyson Fury as a perfect example. And he said he didn't like the idea that Americans will root for Tyson Fury over their own countryman, Deontay Wilder, which we all know why they do it. And we know who they are as well. So let me just start by saying this. You know, I'm really happy when I started this channel. You see in my logo, it says the whole truth. That's what this channel has always been about. When I first started doing this, I was the only person on YouTube that was consistently exposing the racial double standards that exist in the sport of boxing, while old media was ignoring these racial double standards and in many ways reinforcing the double standard. So when I started my channel, my goal was to get the truth out there to where people with bigger platforms, they would echo the same sentiments. I mean, about 10, 15 years ago, because of the way old media was, it was almost taboo for a boxer, let alone even a black boxer, to address racism, double standards, etc., etc. They couldn't even mention it because they would damn near be crucified. But now today, you have people like Errol Spence, Deontay Wilder, Andre Ward, who continuously speak on the racial double standards that exist in the sport of boxing. And just like the George Floyd situation, how that message of everyone protesting across the globe is resonating, well, it's starting to resonate also in the sport of boxing because so many people are addressing it now. This is how you catch someone that's on the run. You put so much pressure on him. You keep putting pictures of him on the news. You keep showing his face. You keep talking about him. That puts an enormous amount of pressure on him. So that's going to make him extremely uncomfortable. And that's what pressure does when you expose the racial element in the sport of boxing, is it makes the racist uncomfortable. That's why they say stuff like, hey man, can you stop talking about this? Can you please stop talking about this? I don't want to hear this, because they know that we're talking about them and it's shining a light on them. They don't want that type of attention. They don't want their face on the news. They don't want their face on posters because they know eventually they're going to get caught if they keep drawing all of this attention. And this is the reason why we're going to keep giving them the attention that they deserve. You know, in an anonymous class, like an alcohol anonymous, a drug anonymous class, they tell you in these classes, the first step to recovery is admitting you have a problem. So that also works with racism. That's why it's so important to talk about it, because you have to admit that racism is a problem in boxing, in the country, in the world. Ignoring the problem only makes the addiction worse, because you're trying to convince yourself you don't have a problem. You're trying to convince yourself you're not an addict. If you can't be honest with yourself, you're always going to have this problem. So once again, I commend Errol Spence and all these other black fighters that are pointing out the obvious double standards that exist in the sport of boxing, especially in this country. What you just heard Errol Spence say is something that you know I've been saying for years. These non-black fans in America, they will always root against their country if the guy representing our country is black and his opponent is not black. And this only happens in America. I've told you guys a million times, in the UK, they don't care if their fighter is black, white, or anything in between. They are going to root for their own country. They are never gonna boo their own countrymen just to cheer on some guy coming from another country to fight. And UK is the perfect country to compare to America because it's as diverse as America when it comes to being a melting pot. Like I said, this only happens in America. And it's funny because I seen a couple comments a while back when I was talking about this, and one guy, of course, he tried to defend not rooting for his own country to root for another country. And he said, well, hey man, what's wrong with just rooting for the guy that's better? What's wrong with rooting for the guy who's more talented because he has great skills, etc., etc.? Why do we have to root for our own country? Once again, keep in mind, America is the only country that roots against their own country. No one else does it. You will never see a Filipino root against Manny Pacquiao to root for the American or whoever he's fighting. But going back to what this guy said, let me just show you how hypocritical they are. Now he says, why do we have to root for our own country? Why we can't just root for the most talented guy, the guy with the more skills, etc., etc. If that were the case, then you would have been rooting for Floyd Mayweather over anyone that he fought. If that were the case, you would be rooting for Andre Ward over Gennady Golovkin, because we all know Andre Ward was better than Golovkin. You would have been a bigger fan of Andre Ward if this was about skill. If this was about skill, Errol Spence and Terrence Crawford, they would be the biggest stars and the most loved stars in the sport of boxing, the most popular. But that's not the case. In fact, sometimes it's the contrary. Sometimes the more talented a black fighter is, the more disliked he is. So we know what time it is at the end of the day. But once again, we have to continue to expose the double standards that exist in the sport of boxing. And now we have a lot of big names that's doing it, which is a step in the right direction. That's all I got for now, guys. I'm on to the next one. You know, I always say on this channel, pay-per-view fights should actually be free. And now the day has come where I'm about to hook you up with an app where you can watch all your pay-per-view events, boxing, UFC, etc. for free. I want to introduce Block TV, the best internet streaming television app out there. They provide over 3,600 channels, including HBO, Cinemax, Showtime, and Starz. They have a massive video on demand library with over 40,000 of the new release movies and the latest TV series. And it also includes DVR. So you're getting all of this for $34.99 a month. And once again, that includes free pay-per-view. So this one right here is a no-brainer, guys, because back in Las Vegas, I was paying damn near $200 a month for my cable. Those days are long gone now. So to get the app, make sure you guys go over to getblocktv.com and put in my promo code and get 30% off your first month. You also get a free month for every friend you refer. The promo code is DBNation.
Are you ready to take your striking game to the next level? Then you've got to get the Focus Ball. Dramatically improved footwork, timing, reflex, hand-eye coordination, head movement, and striking IQ. Lightweight and extremely portable, so you can train every time, everywhere with the Focus Ball.